Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com, and the American Guns and Glory Network, separately on YouTube and numerous other media. A new show is posted every Thursday at around 5 p.m. Pacific time, so you can tune in. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners on Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area, all over Nevada, except at the moment we still don't have one in Clark County, Las Vegas. Working on it. If you have questions or comments, you can send me an email at bob@firedupmail.com. Again, that's bob@firedupmail.com. Or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. That's 702-257-1060. I do not track who called on my phone system. You must leave a message with your contact number or email in order for me to contact you back. If you don't, you'll never know that I listened to your call. If you leave contact information, I've had 3 or 4 calls, usually every week, that say, hey, Bob, I need to know this, and I don't know who it was. So you know the drill. Leave your name and number. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely truthfully covered by any mainstream media. We always present a few of those for our listeners' education. Most of the stories I use are good shootings. Some are questionable. Sometimes they're really wrong, but they're all educational for those of you who own a firearm, keep one in your home for self-defense, or carry one on the street. The individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice given here might not apply to listeners in different jurisdictions. Stories are often, usually actually, paraphrased by me for clarity by translation from police jargon, lawyer speak, or regional accents, regional dialects into standard American English. I speak police jargon, I speak lawyer speak, I don't speak most of the local things that I get on, so I do paraphrase quite a bit. The incidents are reported, except the names of the individuals involved, other than the attorneys or law enforcement officers, are eliminated. This first story comes from the Cincinnati Enquirer, a reporter named Cameron Knight, reported January 22nd, 2020, can't say that, January 22nd, 2020. Police say a 22-year-old, of course, got into an argument on Monday afternoon with a neighbor over holding a common door to an apartment building open. The door opens to let you into the hallways. It's not the individual's door, it's the common door everybody uses. Investigators said the 22-year-old was waiting outside the apartment building on Bruxton Avenue on Tuesday to attack his neighbor, but the neighbor never came out. So he went inside to his neighbor's door, and when the neighbor answered, the 22-year-old started hitting him in the head. The victim then pulled out a .40 caliber handgun to try to ward off the attack, but according to investigators, the attacker then turned and ran away. They usually run away when you point your gun at them. Court documents say the victim chased his attacker outside the building. The 2 men started fighting again for control of the gun. 1 round was fired during the struggle. Apparently no one was hit by that round. As the fight continued, the victim was able to get the magazine out of his gun and throw it. Officers then arrived at the scene and broke up the fight around 3 p.m. This whole thing took about 6 or 8 minutes, as near as I can tell. The victim suffered several fractures as a result of the fight and was hospitalized. The 22-year-old attacker is charged with felonious assault and is being held at the Hampton County Justice Center on bail of $200,000. The commentary on this is obviously, regular listeners know, the fight should have ended when the attacker got away. Call 911, let the professionals chase the perps, save any information you have by writing it down on some notes or making a phone video. By continuing the fight, this resident could have gotten himself killed. I know it's really hard to let a criminal get away, especially in cases like this. The guy beat him up. He had serious injuries, and he wants to go after the guy and get even. But there's no point in putting yourself in danger where it's unnecessary. This is just something that clearly shouldn't have happened. I understand the victim here wanting to get after this guy. Don't fall for that. Be smart. As a note to this story, I found this on a publication called the Cincinnati Enquirer. It's a morning daily newspaper published in Cincinnati, Ohio, since 1841. It is truly a dying breed of old-time community publications. Most of their players or helpers or delivery people are all volunteers, and they just do it to keep the paper afloat. You should really look them up, and on the internet. It's just old school newspaper. I'm probably the last one of its kind. We're going to break here for a brief word about some of our friends and associates. We'll be right back. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at Jones and Russell here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, the man who does all the NRA help, he's at 2216 South Rainbow Boulevard near Sahara. He can be reached at 702-365-1732. Once again, 702-365-1732. Jerry Creed, a trust attorney. If you have a firearms trust or need one, this is your guy. You can reach Jerry at 702-806-7777. That is 702-806-7777. CCW Maggie is found all over the internet. You can reach her by phone at 702-375-5900. That's 702-375-5900. All sorts of firearms training, ladies only classes. She is the best of the best. Call CCW Maggie. We're back. This second story comes to us from WSOC TV 9. Reporter named Anthony Costura reported on January 21st, 2020 in Harlowet, North Carolina. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Police are investigating after a pizza delivery driver shot 3 of 4 people who they said ambushed him and tried to rob him just before midnight at the Hill Rock Estates Apartments on Magnolia Hill Drive. The victim was delivering pizza to the apartment complex when 4 suspects approached him and aimed what he thought was a rifle at his head. The intended victim, who was armed with his own weapon, fired it at the robbers. Police say the suspects ran off after the shooting and the victim called 911. Officers quickly found 3 of the suspects near a laundromat on Kilbourne Drive. 2 of them were taken to the hospital with gunshot wounds, but they were expected to be okay. The 3rd suspect, who was not hit, was detained. More than an hour later, a 4th suspect was dropped off at a hospital with a gunshot wound to the chest. he is also expected to survive. So everybody's in custody. Officers who responded to the scene found the assault-style rifle the suspects used during the robbery, but when it was inspected, they determined it was a toy rifle that had been painted to look like a real firearm. That's not unusual. The 4 suspects, aged 20, 18, 16, and 15, are all charged with robbery with a dangerous weapon and conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon. The 16-year-old was charged as a juvenile because of the raise your age law that went into effect in December. The 15-year-old presumably will be charged as a juvenile also, because he's under the age anyway. The pizza delivery driver was not hurt. Officials have not said if he will face any charges. This incident highlights the growing problem of robberies, specifically involving teenagers. In this case, they did not have a real gun, but in many cases, other cases, they do. An activist said it was at the heart of Charlotte's rising violent crime rate. The fact that it is not a real gun, we've run into this in numerous cases, and the thing makes it an armed robbery if you try to convince the victim that you are threatening his life. He is permitted to believe you in every jurisdiction, probably except New York City and Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle, you know the list, where you can still get in trouble because the crook had a fake gun, and you're supposed to be an expert in the dark and with speed looking at this and identify that it's not real, which of course is not true. We see cases every day where police fire on somebody with a fake gun. You can't possibly tell. We all know that gangbangers use fake guns, then they use real guns with red painted on the muzzle to make police hesitate. If they point the gun at a police officer, he'll hesitate thinking it's a toy. So if you see a gun, regardless of what color it is, your life's in danger if it's pointed at you. That's a reasonable thing to believe. We're going to break here again for a brief word from some of our friends and associates. We'll be right back. Attorney Donald J. Green, a common guest of mine on Fired Up. He can be reached at 702-409-8239. He specializes in gun case litigation. He is your man, Don Green, 702-409-8239. At Ricardo's Restaurant, where you'll usually find me eating lunch every day if I can get there, they're at the corner of Flamingo and Decatur here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-227-9100. That's 702-227-9100. And Battlefield Vegas, my new kind of home for this show. They're on Circus Drive, directly behind the Circus Hotel and Casino. You can find them there with CCW classes and an amazing place for gun rentals, everything you could possibly imagine. Check out, if you're in town as a tourist, check out battlefieldvegas.com. And we are back. I want to make a brief note here. The reason I'm flying solo today, and I really like to have a guest to work off of and banter back and forth whether they agree with me or not. My main attorney, you all know, is local attorney Don Green, who's licensed in Nevada and California. Couldn't make it today because of a conflict with a trial. And went down my list I keep in my notepad of who to call, and I realized the 8 or 9 people that I have on that list, about half of them don't live in Nevada anymore. They're here or there or have scheduling conflicts. It was always I could just pick up the phone and find somebody, and it caught me today. So if you happen to be an attorney who works in criminal cases and are interested in coming on to the show to be able to help me explain how criminal law works and what happens when you get charged with a crime and this and that, based on the episodes we're running. I would be delighted to hear from you. You have my home office recorder, 702-257-1060. Or if you are a experienced firearms instructor, there's lots of them out there. If you have at least 20 years experience in training people and ideally have testified in court about a shooting, the ins and outs of it, whether the gun worked or not, so forth and so on. So I know that you understand the legal system and how we approach this from the legal system point of view. If you've been teaching CCW for 3 years, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who lives this and is experienced in talking to people that have been involved in shootings or perhaps been involved in shootings yourself. So, that being said, we're going to flip over to our third story. This is from KTXL TV3 News, reported on January 27, 2020, in Lodi, California. Interesting case here. A would-be burglar was caught by surprise recently after entering a woman's downtown apartment. The woman was not home, but her boyfriend was. Surveillance video showed the suspect jumping over a back fence and crawling up the stairs right by her barking dogs. In this case, the dogs barked at him, but didn't bite. They let him climb on by. The woman believes he stayed low so people walking by in the alley wouldn't see him. The woman's boyfriend was having a cup of coffee in the kitchen when the man entered the home. When he saw the intruder, he pulled out his gun, presumably had it on him at the kitchen table, but didn't shoot. The boyfriend said, "I looked up and this guy had come inside and shut the door very quietly behind himself. I asked him what he was doing here. He put his hands together and prayed that I didn't shoot him. And I said, 'I'm not going to shoot you. What are you doing here?' The man said he was being chased. The boyfriend demanded the intruder leave, but the video shows a suspect walking casually out with the boyfriend right behind him, still holding the gun. What the man's intentions were are not clear at all, but the boyfriend says no one is usually home at the time. His girlfriend works downstairs at the Beauty of the Beast pet grooming. The boyfriend followed the suspect out into the alley and watched to make sure he walked away. He's glad he was able to keep his cool and that he was home and armed when the man entered the apartment. The woman said, "So I just think it's a real important lesson to learn to lock your doors even when you're home." Duh. Lodi police would like to question the intruder, obviously. This is another case of a home intrusion. I call it that because it seems a little short of a home invasion. Legally it is, but in this case, he just prayed the homeowner wouldn't shoot him. With the perp's attitude, it's hard to call this a home invasion. Perhaps this intruder was stalking the resident woman. That looks likely. Locking your doors is certainly good advice. Chasing by the boyfriend would have been inappropriate here. The police intervention is certainly appropriate if they can locate this guy. I'm sure they have a million questions for him. But this homeowner acted exactly correctly. We have, that's our stories for the day, but we have a couple of gun shows coming up. I'm going to explain after this. Oh, we don't need a break here because we've already done our breaks. So it says that on my outline, but I left it on by accident. Anyway, we have 2 gun shows coming up in the next week plus, 2 weeks plus. This is really unusual. We're running into the vendors are running into problems. putting up gun shows because a lot of casinos now won't take gun shows. We went through a few weeks ago the one at the Palace Station. They won't put gun show on their marquee. They put Sportsman's Expo or something. There's a lot of stuff where casinos don't want to be responsible for having gun shows. Working in the gun business where I do, I understand that, because if a gun is sold accidentally to a person who shouldn't get one, even when a background check wasn't required, somehow they think the vendor should have known, hence the casino should have known not to let that vendor in. The casino is the guy with the deep pockets. They get sued for millions, where the gun show gets sued for $50, you know. You can't do anything about that, but I understand the legal implications, why the attorneys for these major casinos are going, boy, we just can't risk that. However, the taxpayers can. So there are shows coming up at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And being as it's one of the last venues left, we have 2 shows coming up in February. The February 8th and 9th, 2020, is the Crossroads of the West gun show at the South Hall of the Convention Center. The following week, February 15th and 16th, the Great Las Vegas Gun Show is, guess where? The same place, at the Las Vegas Convention Center. You find these shows if you drive across Desert Inn, that is from the middle of town. You drive Desert Inn until you get to Swenson, from either side, actually. Just drive Desert Inn till you hit Swenson. Turn south, and almost immediately to your right is the South Hall where this show takes place. Both shows, 2 vendors, 2 different weeks, 2 different weekends, in exactly the same place. I spoke to both vendors. Each said they've always had shows there, and they have. But the common one is the Great Las Vegas Gun Show. The other guy got caught because he had his show set up, and it got canceled by the city of Las Vegas because of remodeling downtown at the pavilions, where they normally have it. So both shows were at the same place, a week apart. I'm trying to make arrangements to store all my stuff there so I don't have to move everything twice. But I think they'll probably be using the room for something else in the meantime. Both shows, 2 shows, February 8 and 9, February 15 and 16, Las Vegas Convention Center, South Hall on Swenson Avenue, just south of Desert Inn. Be there. They're both really good shows, and we should have a lot of stuff for sale with all the new gun laws that are coming up and the magazine bans and other Sisolak governor programs here that are about to bite us in the butt. So we are pretty much at the end of where I want to go. Check out our recent shows at www.firedupwithboberwin.com. It contains several dozen recent episodes. Please patronize our friends and supporters. We'll be back next Thursday on our website, firedupwithboberwin.com, on YouTube at the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other websites, television, and radio stations. When watching any media, just click on subscribe. It'll be there somewhere. And new shows will be sent to your computer or your phone automatically. Please forward these broadcasts to your friends. Our logo merchandise we used to sell on the air, my hats and shirts and books, are available now at Battlefield Vegas. It's just behind Circus Circus on the Las Vegas Strip, where you see Circus Circus. There's a road that goes down, looks like the middle of Circus Circus. It's called Sammy Davis Jr. Drive, an old friend of mine, actually, Sammy. And you will run right into the entrance to Battlefield Vegas. Remember, the audio portion is repeated on the Nevada Talk Network all across Nevada on Saturdays at noon. You can check out all the stations in your area by going to KELY1230.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for supporting Fired Up. We're trying to do our bit for gun rights. Have a good afternoon.